So we got a video from Jubilee today titled, "Do All White Folks Think the Same About Race?"
White people have culture.
I don't know if like people pretend like Irish and Italian people don't exist, but I never understood this question.
Same.
3, 2, 1.
We're all technically white.
Yeah.
If you're from England, if you're from Australia, if you're from wherever, South Africa, you know, we all have these crazy places we come from and these people are around and we get those ideas from those people. But that doesn't mean us as a whole have no culture.
But as a white person, it's not really a culture. You can have culture like I'm hella Irish, obviously, and that's a culture. But just being white is not it's not a culture. I can't relate to you just because you're white.
I think you could say that for any ethnicity though.
Tell them, girl. Tell them. Africans and North Americans don't necessarily see the eye on a lot. There's cultural differences. Same thing with people from the Caribbeans and other parts. So, good rebuttal from home.
But I think that they're saying the same, somewhat of the same thing, but it results in different views. He strongly disagrees, not because white people don't have culture, but because they're so different types of white, they cannot have just one culture, right? Whereas she's strongly agrees, she goes more on the side of strongly agrees, because they're so different, therefore she acknowledges that they're different cultures. You know what I mean? And it just proves you that you can actually say the same things and base yourself on the same thing, and they both internalize it differently.
If we were all black, could I relate to you guys if just because of the color of our skin?
Yes, because they go through very similar experiences, like they'll get discriminated against, and you're not getting discriminated against because of your skin color. They can both relate to that.
But apparently you do share privilege. Ooh. Isn't that what y'all always say when y'all get on that liberal, you know what I mean? We all got this privilege.
But I also feel like with culture, we branch out, we try different things, we want to do different things. So maybe we've lost a little bit of our culture.
Maybe we're creating a new culture.
There you go.
I believe in reverse racism.
Ugh. What's this new term? What's reverse? Is it just like when a white folks does something, or
Yes.
or like when a black
is white on black? Reverse is when white people suffer. It's racism. It's not reverse nothing. It's still racism.
The reason why I don't like the term reverse racism is because it implies the idea that black folks have the institutional power to be racist against white people, and they don't. So it's not possible.
It's not. No, get the fuck out of here.
I grew up where it was completely like Hispanic culture. I was constantly made fun of because I was white. Oh, white people can't dance. White people look stupid, whatever.
Yeah, but they're not being racist, they're being prejudiced.
You can't even hold it straight.
Do you imagine if like a Latino person was like, I think white folks are inferior, and someone's like, yeah, that's not racist. That is just prejudice. I'm like, man, if you don't get the out of here with that bullshit. And also, prejudice is part of the definition of racism. Like, I hate that stuff. But now they're changing the dictionary.
Of course,
definition
to fit whatever narrative
to include the institutional aspect.
If I turned around and said, black people can't dance, I'd get hell for that.
Yeah, because it's not true. You'd get hell for it because it's a lie.
3, 2, 1.
It's crazy how the same three people are always disagreeing, but it's interesting.
I think it's important to focus on race in order to bring us together. There is a race issue in America, and if we just avoid it altogether and pretend like it's not happening, nothing's going to change, in my opinion.
I kind of was thinking about the question differently, because if all I'm thinking about when I meet someone is, oh, I'm white and she's not white, and I'm white and she's not white, like that for me, that's like what focusing on race is.
Cultural appropriation is real. 3, 2, 1.
This feels like an interview question for a job application at BuzzFeed.
That you actually don't want.
Like you know when you're applying to BuzzFeed and it's just like, so you want to be the janitor? Okay, great. Is cultural appropriation?
Yeah, I think cultural appropriation is very real. You see all the time, like Coachella, you know, we're in LA and you see people in the Native American headdresses without knowing how important that is to Native people.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a difference between respecting the culture and completely disrespecting the culture. But then also, if you want to dress up on Halloween like a geisha because you like the costume, you think it's a beautiful costume, that I wouldn't say is...
That's the same. That's the same as disrespecting the culture. It's the same thing.
I wouldn't do that. I think if you're gonna go and dress up as a geisha without knowing the importance of it and just being like, well, this is cute, like I'm gonna put this on. And also, even if you did know the importance and you're like, I don't know, Halloween is just like a weird holiday to be dressing up as anybody else's culture.
You can say the same thing about any costume. Are you going to tell a 6-year-old girl that she can't dress up like a pirate because she doesn't know the history of pirates? Like,
that's very different.
There's a whole bunch of Somalians being like, I'm the captain now. Okay, this is an interesting topic. I think it can be disrespectful for sure. If you're wearing something as a traditional attire for specific ceremonies and someone's just wearing it willy-nilly as like their goof, I can see how that's disrespectful, you know? There are certain outfits that are worn for ceremonies for rites of passage, right? Or for example, even the military. We're given parade uniforms, right? And if I saw a regular civilian wearing one, it would make me feel a little bit weird seeing him wear all the medals and all that stuff. I'm not going to tell someone, don't do it or whatever, but I could understand why people would be like, ugh. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
I'm not going to do like her and repeat everything you said.
I think it's a lot about intention, because I think wearing that thing at Coachella, like, I feel like I would see that as that person mocking someone.
Well, even if they don't intentionally mean it, it's still offensive.
That's true. You know, your intentions aren't everything. Do they matter? Yes. But the impact also partially matters. Is the intention the most important part? Yes. But just like I said before, you get in a car, you drink and drive. You didn't intend to kill somebody, but you still did. You're still negligent in a dangerous way. I'm not saying that this is akin to that, but all I'm trying to say is that your ignorance of the consequences of what you do, irrespective of your intentions, matters.
I should be able to say the N-word while singing along to a song. 3, 2, 1.
the only reason I'm at somewhat disagree is because a lot of my favorite rappers use it frequently. Like if I'm listening to my favorite Childish Gambino song, which drops it like 100 times,
Right. I know. So
you know
like
that
in the car, it's like
it's like I'm not sitting there thinking all these horrible things about black people, and I'm like, it's just in the song, and when I'm singing, it comes out.
There's like 2 different forms of the word. There ends with an ER and with an A.
This is a hard video to get through. Preach, what do you have thoughts?
What I'm packing my
I can appreciate the fact that they're trying to make this video to talk about these things, but good lord, this is hard to watch.
I'm ready to go, bro.
You know what I don't like about these videos is like they always just harp on the superfluous stuff that really don't matter. Can white folks say the N-word in private when they're listening? Like, who cares? Like, do you think I give a shit if a tree falls in the wood and nobody hears it? That's what that feels like.
Yes, it does.
You know, like I don't care.
And answering that question is not going to help save lives.
Yeah,
It's not going to get people not killed by it. Because, you know,
these are
the police didn't say the N-word in front of a black man, therefore the black man was dead. That's not what happened.
Yeah.
That's not where the problem is. So,
you know what I realized watching this? I think when it comes to these issues and black folks specifically, I think I just get bored of always hearing about the same topics.
yeah.
It's always the same stuff. Can we say that? We're like, that's not what's really hurting us. You know, until we start talking about class more often and finances, all this other shit is really irrelevant.
Yeah, I don't care about the N-word. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't.
Do you think Jewish people care if you use whatever Jewish slur? They don't care, man.
And like with my friends, they're like, oh, you can say it with an A, like that won't hurt my feelings.
That's what people told me.
But also, like, even when I'm in the car by myself, like, I still feel like it's not my place. Yeah. Maybe I'll, like, whisper it, like, with an A at the end, you know, like, if I'm...
I can't. I'm sorry, guys. I know you guys wanted this video, but it's just like these discussions, they're not interesting.
But you answering all these questions doesn't solve the problem. That's what exactly you said. You talking about, oh, can white people say the N-word? It's not the issue. It is not. And so even cringe you're watching, yeah, it's just cringy.
It's just cringy.
Yeah, it's just cringy.
Yeah, I just feel like people focus these discussions on this topic
anything.
in the wrong place.
It doesn't help anything.
We have a huge class problem.
Typical
right?
myself.
You know, like we need to talk about other things. We've been talking about this topic forever. Who cares? It's not that important. So that's my thoughts on this. I don't think Jubilee did a bad thing. I think they just kind of repeated a lot of the questions that people have been asking themselves forever, and these are dumb questions, to be honest with you.
That's what I think.
That's what I think.
I just think that
I think it's just easier to talk about these questions because they're more in your face and they're more apparent, they're more flagrant. But the real issues that are affecting minority communities don't get discussed because they're not an easy enemy to look at.
Yeah, exactly. Why people say the N-word and with everything that happened, all right? With everything that happened in the history, why people say the N-word, man? And now that person is the evil, but that does not solve anything.
Let me give you a good example. 2015, we had a giant case where I think the Department of Justice got $200 million from a bank because they were found out to be redlining. A practice that was eliminated in the 60s was still happening today. If you don't know what redlining is when they bar people from having access to loans and things like that.
Because of where they live at.
And also race. Majority of it is race.
Race, yeah.
So they got this settlement done. They found them to be guilty of redlining. And what strikes me as interesting is that if there was more upward mobility, if people's financial situations were better, a lot of these issues that we're dealing with today wouldn't exist. You know? That's also something to recognize. If George Floyd lived in a much richer neighborhood, I don't think that situation would have happened. And it sounds like a direct correlation that's too crazy to make. But what I'm trying to say is that a lot of us are living in bad areas, forced by all kinds of issues that happen at the top, right? And we're so focused on, like, did she say the N-word, not recognizing that this thing is way bigger. $200 million is a huge settlement. To be accused of redlining is a big deal, but it's not as discussed as someone being arrested on tape because the visual of it is not as impactful.
Because we have a culprit.
But it doesn't mean that this is not more important. You know, the documentary on the 13th and how it talks about the 13th Amendment, how it functions, that's way more important to discuss than whether someone else could. So I just think sometimes when we focus a discussion on, like, I want to be empathetic towards black folks, I'm like, well, I feel like we're discussing the wrong things. That's all. Yeah. So anyways, let us know what your thoughts are. Did you feel like we should have kept going with the video?
We're not going back, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, but let us know.
We're not going to finish the video if you want to see it. So you can answer, but I mean, we're not going to...
You know, the only problem I have with these kind of things is, like, range of beliefs, but you also have to understand they're pooling everyone from the same area. It's not like you can bring people from across the country to share in on this, generally speaking. So it's white folks in that area. Doesn't mean that they're a monolith either, but it does cloud it does form your experience. It's like if I did a video with black folks in New York, it's not going to be the same as if I did it in Florida, Louisiana, Texas, or the West Coast. It's going to be a different experience.
Then again, I don't really necessarily agree that you're going to have a different answers because, like, the boroughs are so different and you got different grades of what, like, it depends what black people you're going to get. You're going to get black people from hoods, from different social class. So it might be actually different. You know what I mean? But I digress.
Well, I mean, just take, for example, voting blocks and principles. People vote differently based off where you live.
That's what you're saying.
You know, black folks necessarily in specific states don't vote the same as in other. Same with white folks. White folks in the South don't vote the same as white folks, generally speaking, in the West.
Or up north.
Yeah. So of course, like even here in Quebec, we're different than most of Canada.
Yeah.
And you feel that when you talk to other Canadians. I feel that drastic difference.
Absolutely. True.
So
you're right.
Yeah, your area is obviously